Welcome to Watercolor Live. My name is Janine Gallizia, and what I want to do today is focus on, let's just say what people call it, your personal style. I don't really feel that it's your personal style. I kind of feel it's actually who you are, and who you are should transpire into your paintings. A person should stand in front of your paintings and be able to understand the sort of person that you are, because you are a reflection of the choices you make in your paintings and the way you put these choices across. So paintings actually tell a very big story about the artist. So what message are you putting across to the public, the buyer, the judge in your paintings? Are you even conscious of it? And is there a way of improving the way you're presenting who you are as an artist to these groups of people to perhaps convince them a little bit more? This is a really big deal, because when someone looks at a painting, you need to convince them. You need to make your story seem believable, as if you're taking them to the place that you're at, that you're making them feel the atmosphere or the light that you've put in the subject. You have to convince these people, the judge, the buyer, the gallery person, whoever. You have to convince them. And part of that is the way you lay your brush work or your pencils, your pencil lines on the paper. Are you bold? Are you confident? Are you hesitating? Is there a way that even if you are hesitating, can you bluff it? Let's have a look. Let's take a deep dive into this and see how you can increase and improve the appearance of confidence in your paintings, so that when people see your paintings, they believe the story that you're telling them. Let's go paint. Let's make it a street scene. That will make it easier. I'm going to put in an extra building. Let's just say here, further away. And I need a message, okay? Because if I don't have a message, if I don't know what I want to say, but then basically whatever it is not going to come across. So let's just create a really simple, loose image of what could be a city. Which one? Who knows? Let's just pretend it's something that exists. And it's the mood I'm after. It's very much the mood I'm after. I'm only going to do something very smaller. So I'm actually going to create like a road here, an open space that basically has taller buildings on either side. So let's actually finish this side with a taller building already. Let's just move this over a little bit taller and finish the painting about here. So tiny little thing. That's basically the painting size that I'll be working with. So my taller building, let's just say it's here, coming into perhaps roads, who knows, it doesn't matter. What I'm purposefully doing here is making sure that the subject is very, very loosely drawn. I don't want to have a stiff subject, because a stiff subject is going to create a stiff painting. So voluntarily messy drawing, so always the way I prefer it anyway, because it gives more life. I'm actually creating life in my subject with just messy lines. They're loose, they're spontaneous, and therefore so should my painting end up. All right, we'll throw some people on perhaps after as well. But this is what we're talking about. We're talking about layering in mood, atmosphere, ideas, your style, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not here to draw and paint a wonderful painting. I'm here to try and put how I do, how I put my personality, my choices, and atmosphere above my subject. So the first thing is lose the subject. So when the subject is already drawn very tightly, you're going to paint often more tighter than the drawing was. So loosen up the drawings, number one. Number two, loosen up the first washes as well. So I need to have an idea. My idea is going to be a very sort of low sunshine. Let's just say that it's evening, sort of like the last light at the end of the day. And what I'm doing is just having that sort of glow coming through the street. Let's just push this facade here, this one in the shadows, maybe even having some elongated shadows through here. maybe even an extra shadow falling across. It's going to be quite a strong light and shade, but with that sort of yellow light that sort of flows out. So I'm putting the idea in my mind. What is it? The atmosphere. Because if I want to put the atmosphere across, I have to know what atmosphere that I want. From there, perhaps I can put some cooler colors in the shadows, some cooler colors in the background, creating that sort of impression of cooler shadows, impression of something a little bit further away, and just see how we go. I don't think I need to do anything particular with the sky, and as this is only a 5-10 minute demo, I'm not even going to worry about the sky, because otherwise I'll be waiting for that paint to dry, which is not my favorite pastime. So I can either paint, let's just start with painting. I'm not going to wet the sky at all. Okay, so that's gold ochre as a base. I'm just going to literally slop it on. Why? Because just like my drawing, I want things loose. I don't want things to be tight, and I don't want them to be perfect. I want them to be irregular. I want them to be spontaneous. I want them to have their own personality. So when I have a style in my painting, that style is just me. That's just my reflection, just the way that I dress, the way that I'll do my hair, the way that I choose the colors that go in my house. They're the things I like. So I'll be painting using the colors I like, the strokes I like, in a way that I like. You don't have to look any deeper than what it is that you like to know what your style should look like. My style is obviously quite messy, but so is my hairstyle. So there you go. There's some interesting parallels there. So I'm slopping this on, literally connecting my shapes and making sure that I'm not separating my subject, because I want an overall atmosphere. If I want an overall atmosphere, I need to paint the overall painting. If I'm painting bits, I will end up with a painting of bits, and that's not what I'm after. So let's just go loose to get that spontaneity and atmosphere in, and let's go a little bit sloppy. You don't have to be sloppy, but I prefer it, because then that gives me that spontaneous feel to it. Let's get some paint in the brush, and it will be even better. Alrighty, so I am just using this as an example. I don't need to go and do everything in yellow. This is just an example. I'm going to create that as a diagonal. Just makes it a bit more interesting. I'm actually going to put some cool colors in here. That's my burnt sienna and my green. It's a Windsor green. I love these colors together. And I'm actually going to start to push shadows into a cooler range, and even green. Green's not usually the it's not the idea that we the color that we often think of for buildings, but for some reason I feel like putting green in. So green I shall. Okay, you go where you feel, and you don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to explain yourself. It's your painting, but I'm loosening it up. I'm putting that overall atmosphere, hopefully, that's my goal, in front of what the subjects are. One building, second building, a church tower, a road. I'm putting the overall subject ahead of everything else. Some shadows down here. Even over here. Okay. Let's change brushes on this one. So we are going to be working in the next few live sessions, the next few Mondays, on atmosphere and bringing your style in. So this is basically a warm-up for you, for all of you guys who actually come weekly or just when you feel like it to the live, so that we've already got this sort of loose up sort of feel, starting to open up our brush work, but also our choices. All right, but this is a very different subject from what we're doing next Monday. What we're doing next Monday is actually lily pads from Monet, because we're going to be analyzing how Monet was able to basically attract the entire world around a group of very simple paintings of water lilies. And when I say simple, they're not simple in technique, they're simple in the fact that they're also similar. So there's a method behind it. There's a method there, and we're going to walk through that method and see what we can actually recuperate. All right, so going back to this painting, it's always interesting to go back to the past and see what people are doing and how they're doing it, rather than trying to invent everything on your own. All right, I definitely need a warmer foreground. So I'm going to bring something darker in here, and that's already going to give a little bit of a contrast boost. And now I'm actually going to leave these shapes, but can you see already how every single shape basically weaves in and out of the subject, and they're all connected. They're absolutely all connected. So from here, I mean, this is extremely fast. What I want to do is I want to already start bringing details in, and I want to start bringing some dry on wet technique to start creating fusion, atmosphere, suggestion, all that kind of stuff, that lovely stuff that makes us feel in front of a painting rather than seeing something hyper figurative. So I'm already going to throw a little bit of my ultramarine blue, which I know my brush is too wet, so just taking out a little bit of the water at the base of the brush to ensure that my brush is not too wet. And I'm cooling these corners. I'm cooling them down a little bit, which will help give them a little bit of depth. Okay, this is just going to be really quick, but it doesn't have to be boring. Okay, this is still wet. This paper is still wet, but because I dried that excess water from the base of the brush, I can go back in quite easily without making watermarks, without messing up basically my washes, because my paintbrush is drier than the paper. All right, so this is something that we're going to be doing on Monday. Okay, this is just a glimpse. So for those of you coming, ears up. What we're doing and what we will be doing with Monet's paintings is we're going to be arranging colors, a little bit like jigsaw puzzles. And so this cooler color, I'm going to repeat it down here. All right, and we're going to be doing this with the next couple of weeks actually, to see how they talk to each other by crossing colors over, and the way that we're juxtaposing colors one next to another. We're going to see how we can actually create that same effect that not just Monet, but the Impressionists got, and adapting it to, let's just say, more modern subjects, painted in more modern ways, and seeing how we can increase that individual feel and atmosphere in your own paintings. All right, so that's talking to each other. All I need to do now is just bring in some very, very basic detail. Paint's a bit dry. All right, a bit too brown. And keeping that brush always drier. If you need to, use the paper, the kitchen paper, or wipe it onto a towel or something that you've got in front of you. Keeping the brush drier than the paper, and you can go back in as much as you like without making watermarks. Okay. That way you never have to worry about having to wait or having to paint quickly. Just quite simply because you can paint on whatever water surface and get whatever watercolor effect you like, as long as you are dosing your paintbrush with the quantity of water that you have in order to get the effect that you want. Darker, drier, watery, fused. It all comes from here and here. All right, so let's just get some cute little details in, animate this subject a little bit. You're going to see that we don't actually need a lot. But one thing that we do need, and that I'm going to do in a moment, is some sort of individualized style, technique, element so that my painting doesn't look like everyone else's. So what could that be? When we're looking at the Impressionist paintings, we see their brushwork is a big part of it. But it also is the way that they painted color, light, atmosphere, and all these sort of effects. Some of them used tiny little dots. Some of them had more, let's just say, a more flat, perfect sort of rendition of a shape. Some people were really into suggestion and almost no shape. That's where we can find a lot of the people on the beaches in the paintings of Eugène Boudin, which are actually some of my favorites. And all of a sudden, we're going to see everyone paints details differently. It's not just the washes, but it is washes and the choices we make, but it's more about the details. It's more about the brushworks. The brushwork, how do you lay them in? How do you put them on? How do you change the colors, not change the colors? Make them tighter, make them looser to create whatever it is that looks like you. Now I'm going to stop talking for a second because otherwise I'm not going to be able to paint like me because I'm too distracted by talking. So sit back, just watch, and I'll just have fun painting. Okay, so you can see how basically I'm just using dots and lines and simple shapes to create whatever sort of feel I'm looking for in this little sketch. But the idea is keeping the energy going. So I've got that loose energy in the background, the loose energy working in the foreground, in the shadows, in the big shapes, and also in the details. I don't want to start doing really simple, tight details if the rest of my painting is loose. So I'm trying to be coherent in the choices that I make, and they actually suit the style of painting that I'm doing. I think I hit strong on that one. So this, you know, shows a little bit about me. What does it show? It shows I guess it shows a level of confidence. I guess it shows also that I paint very fast, and that's the speed that I like. But however, your painting speed will suit the painting. Let's just say the way you paint, the way you draw, the way you write. You will actually have your own sort of style, your own sort of speed. So my speed is obviously fast, with quite a lot of confidence, and when it's not perfect, I'll just leave it alone, meaning I make compromises, meaning that I'm not overly controlling, that I'm understanding that precision is less important than spontaneity and confidence. I'm not going back and correcting a wash, a shape. If I don't think it's right, I'll just leave it, because I know it's better the first time than if I go back in and change it. However, I do know also sometimes when there's a problem with the tonal values that I do maybe need to go back in and correct them. Now this wash over a wash I just threw on, and I can see that the tonal values are too much the same. So in this case I can darken the bottom of the buildings, or I can darken the ground. Either would work, so I'm going to go for a darker base on my buildings. And I'm not going to hesitate, I'm just going to throw it on. Why? Because it matches the idea of the rest of it. So I'm actually enhancing exactly all of the things that I just said. That confidence, that for the greater good of the painting sort of attitude, rather than trying to be pedantically correcting things and doubting what I'm doing. Okay, and all I'm doing is I'm changing that tonal value so that we get a different, I'm actually putting a different color in as well, getting it a bit warmer, so that it creates a little bit more visual impact on the subject that I have. So this is really simple art. It's quick, simple, and almost nasty in the looseness of the brushwork, but it'll work because it works. It's believable. You believe the scene because it's done with confidence, not because it's great technique. It's just done with confidence, that's all. So there you go. That's our little session for today. All I can say to you is loosen up your brushwork, play, have confidence in the strokes that you lay down. Even if they're not perfect, it doesn't matter. No one's looking for perfection, and definitely not judges. So play with them and have fun. Because when you have fun painting a painting, it shows. There you go. I'll see you guys next week. Take care, and perhaps on Monday.